everybody, my name's Alice Bell. I am the resident speaker for VideoBrains for this month, last month, and the next 4 months. I work for videogamer.com. What? Is it 3? Have I done 3? Shit.
This is 3.
It's not, is it?
It's number 3. This isn't last month's talk, is it?
No. This is apparently the 3rd talk that I've done.
The second one.
I'm so confused. Why did you think that was funny?
I get so confused.
So, this is my second Fuckeduplet, which is about morality in games is fucked. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And I don't think I'll be able to top last time when I made everyone sing Dragon Age dialogue. So we'll just do our best this time. So we'll start with some easy questions. What is morality? Broadly speaking, morality is how we define good and bad, and our morals, how we sort of decide the difference between the two. Which is a very broad kind of definition, but people get their morals from lots of different things. They get it from, how their friends feel about things, and their family and society that they live in. Some people use religion to inform their morals, and then you have the law, and the law is the law, and the law is sort of society deciding that something is so bad that you have to be punished for doing it. Except it sort of doesn't work that way because there are degrees in the law, and in America there are degrees to murder depending on how bad you've done a murder. Over here we have murder and we have manslaughter for when you murdered someone but it thought it wasn't your fault, you didn't mean to do it. And then, that sort of changes in different places as well. So in Ireland right now, this weekend they had a big protest to repeal the 8th, to reform Ireland's restrictive abortion laws. But at the same time in Poland, their government is moving forward with making abortion even more restricted and basically illegal under any circumstances, including sexual assault and including incest. So that's fun. It's not, it's terrible. And the only contraception you can get over the counter in Poland is condoms as well. So it makes everything a lot easier. The law changes not only over time, but also over different countries as well. And not even just over different countries, like in one country, it can be different. In the USA, the age of sexual consent differs from 16 to 18, depending on what state you're in, which is a weird state of affairs that has now led to them having something called the Mann Act, which makes it illegal to take a minor in your state across state lines just because you want to have sex with them. And someone was arrested under that law as recently as 2012. So, I guess what I'm saying is that morals change. And in real life, even though we're sort of started off being taught that they're black and white, really, they're a bit more... I was hoping for a bigger laugh, if I'm honest. So normally it's a thing that I kind of hide a penis in all my talks to kind of upset Jake. And I was going to sort of put it in here, but I couldn't think of a good one, so there's just a crudely drawn I don't know what is expected of me anymore. So. But in video games, they are a bit more black and white. Yeah. So games tend to simplify morals a bit more, especially in the sort of games where they say this is a game about making moral choices. And Lionhead is kind of an easy example for that. But there are other ones. There are games that give you like an asshole points score, and they show you explicitly how much of an asshole you're being. This is from Knights of the Old Republic. I think the second one. I'm not sure. And you can see as well that often it's represented physically. So if you're bad, you'll look bad, and if you're good, then you'll look good. So if we look at, say, the pros of being good in a video game, you'll have blonde hair and perfect skin, and people that you interact with will like you. And the cons are that it's kind of harder in the short term, usually, just because you won't have, maybe the resources that you get from killing someone and taking their money. And if you're bad, then it's easier in the short term. It might come back to bite you in the ass later, but generally not. We'll get on to that in a minute. And you'll be a brunette with bad skincare regime, and people won't like you. And that's how they denote good and bad. So this again is a Lionhead game. Again, you can see the physical shape. This is Creature Eye, Black and White Creature Eye 2. So this is a bad monkey, and that's a good monkey. I wanted to get the turtle or the cow, but I couldn't find these. So there are other superficial cues they use as well, are some of my favourites. Being a man with facial hair longer than regulations allow indicates you might be a bad guy. So the equation I've got there is facial hair times length equals propensity towards evil. If you have an accent deviating from the standard, so the standard here would be pretty much just an American accent. They're all right with British accents now too, usually, but like Eastern European, Eastern Asian, Central Asia, Africa, probably a bad guy. If you've got a body type deviating from the standard, I put standard in quotes there because I don't mean the average body type, I mean what video games think is the average body type, and we all know those aren't the same thing. And also my favourite one is being a woman and liking sex. And I don't mean being sexy, I mean if you're a woman in a video game and you've come to fuck, then like you're like a bad person. My example for this is Elise from Assassin's Creed Unity, because she turned up in a black dress and was very clearly like she was up to get down, and immediately I was like, Templar, she's a Templar, everyone. She turned out to be a Templar, so spoilers. So generally, games reduce the system of morals to something quite simple, something quite understandable, and quite polar extremes. So you're presented with a choice that's like, adopt the puppy and give the puppy a loving home, or gouge out the puppy's eyes with your thumbs. And you know pretty much that that's kind of unambiguously the bad choice. If you were unsure then, please don't come up and say hi to me afterwards. So sometimes that can be a good thing, because when you're a kid, and when I was a kid, you're kind of taught moral absolutes, that morals are black and white, that you don't lie and that you're nice to people. And I was bullied as a kid, and I didn't understand that happening. I didn't understand that a girl could say something to me and she could say that she liked me and she'd be lying. And more than that she could be lying because then it would be really funny when she was nasty to me later. And so games kind of gave me a nice kind of understandable context, a nice kind of understandable moral world where bad people were bad and good people were good. And it's sort of a little bit more complicated than that. I know that there are shades of grey, but we're going to come to that now, because there are a lot of games, particularly games coming out more now, with things getting, there are more polygons, you can do more stuff, that are kind of trying to be a bit more nuanced, which is great, RPGs, stuff like that. But the problem, really, that I think is when you're trying to make a game that's morally grey, you kind of come up against a problem, because you want all player choices to feel justified. So what that means is that you can't, Ken Levine described it as being like anathema to game design. So it's a little sister from Bioshock. And in Bioshock you can choose to harvest the little sisters to give you a very important resource, or you can choose to save them and you'll get a little bit less of the resource. Now, when Bioshock came out, Jonathan Blow criticised this aspect because it was supposed to be like a big kind of choice in the game, but it doesn't actually boil down to being a choice, because if you choose to save the little sisters, you still get a kind of gift to top up your resources anyway, so it kind of comes out as a wash. It doesn't really make a difference at all. And Kelly was asked about this recently, and he said, yeah, I did want to make it so it was much harder to actually play the game if you made the good choice. But the publishers sort of didn't like that. They didn't want that. They didn't want the player to be punished for any of the choices that they made. And he described it as being sort of like anathema to game design, because you want the player to enjoy their experience, no matter what decisions they make. So another example, I know I do BioWare in every talk, and I'm not going to apologise for it. And I'll probably say that I'm not going to apologise for it in every talk as well. So this is Dorian from Dragon Age Inquisition, and he was the first quote-unquote fully gay character, by which was meant that he was the first guy that you could only romance if you had a male player character. And actually the designer did get a little bit of criticism for the term fully gay, but I quite like fully gay, and I'm sure others do as well. So it's sort of a semi-accepted thing, or a lot of people kind of read it this way, that magic in Dragon Age is kind of an allegory for the treatment of LGBT plus, the treatment of the LGBT plus community in the same way that Bryan Singer used the mutants as something of kind of a gay rights allegory in his X-Men films, and that's in fact how he got Ian McKellen on board to be Magneto, by describing it as such. So there are a few kind of similarities that you can draw. So for example, magical abilities often appear in adolescence when the person is coming to kind of sexual maturity. The persecution is often based in religion and reading of religious texts. Mages are seen as unfit to be parents, and they get their children taken away by the church. And they can be rendered safe by undergoing a dangerous process which removes their entire personality, so they can no longer dream and they can no longer have the feelings that they used to have. They can be mages as long as they don't practice being mages. But on the other hand, the player who chooses to side with the Templars also has to feel like they made an okay choice. So mages can also explode into fireballs and turn into literal demons, which is where the allegory falls down somewhat. So to do that, they have to make the other faction, the Templars, who kind of are in charge of like crushing the mages under their boot, seem like a more kind of sympathetic and attractive proposition. So this is Cullen, who has undergone something of a transformation over the years. This is him in the first Dragon Age. This is Cullen in Dragon Age 2. Wait for it. Oh. There we go. This GQ motherfucker is Cullen in Inquisition. Cullen, by being in Inquisition, which is Inquisition kind of tells, or part of the story Inquisition tells is the coming to the head of all the tensions between the Templars and the Mages. And Cullen's presence as an advisor kind of reminds you that Templars can be okay people. So he's got this tragic backstory where he explains how Templars are trained from a young age, they're taken from their family when they're little children, and they're forced to become addicted to a dangerous substance, and he goes through really painful withdrawals and all this kind of stuff. Because players that choose to side with the Templars have to feel like that was okay and they didn't do a bad thing. Even though it's trying to be like a morally nuanced game, it's kind of not, and it kind of shies away from saying anything and really making the allegories that it uses hit home. It abstracts them quite a lot. On the other hand, you have Deus Ex. In the latest Deus Ex game, it does not abstract it at all, right? It's about the augmented people, like Adam Jensen, who did not ask for this. I can't believe that got a laugh when that's like the most tired joke about video games ever. So Adam Jensen, and he's your player character, and he's augmented, and so the game is kind of about the tensions between augmented people and non-augmented people. And unaugmented people, it's literally referred to in the game several times as racism. They do not abstract it at all. Like, non-aug people are being racist against augmented people, but you, as Adam Jensen, the player, still has to feel like a badass super soldier, which leads to a kind of breakdown where you are like having to give your papers to policemen, but you can also still like stand there with a gun in their face indefinitely and like snap back at them and be like, oh yeah, you want to see my papers? You see my papers, yeah. Which kind of doesn't work for me, and I again feel that it shied away from actually saying anything, from actually making any point, because as a white person it basically put me in the position that I'm always in, which is unaffected basically by racism. So I feel like when you're doing nuance and when you're doing morals in games, you can do black and white, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. You can make those choices really obvious, and I'll still have a great time. And I'll enjoy, you know, being evil, and then being able to, with my extra resources, buy some kind of thing that will make me look normal, because there's always one of those. But if you are going to be nuanced, and if you're going to use real moral and political situations, even if what you say is something that I don't agree with, fucking say something.